Okay, class, we're going to talk about kind of our last new concept before we review for the third exam or third test, um, and so we're going to kind of put these into two sessions into one here for you. Okay. All right. So be sure and freeze the screen, copy what's on it, and we'll proceed. Okay. All right, solving two-step area problems. Very often you run into this anytime you're doing home improvement, adding carpet to a room, figuring out molding links into a room that maybe is not just a perfect square or a rectangle. So example one, find the area of a room pictured to the right. So I've got a room here. This looks like two different rectangles, and been given dimensions. Okay, and so how would we find the total area? Well, I've kind of broken it down into steps. Step one over here on the left is divide the room into two separate rectangles. So what I would do is I would take, and just like you see these lines here, I've just kind of drawn white lines across to create basically two rectangles. All right. Now, if you look at this rectangle here that I'm shading in here, okay, if you look at this rectangle here, it's 8 times 18. So we can figure out the area of that length times width, okay? But what about the area of the rest of the space, okay? Well, what do we know here? We know that the total length from here to here is 24 feet, okay? And we know that we've got a length from here to here is 8 feet, okay? So if I subtract 18 from 20, or 8, excuse me, from 24, from this total length here, that's going to give me a length of 16 feet here. Okay. Because now that's what's left. Okay. So now I've got a room that's 16 times 10. So if you look at my steps at the bottom left here, find the missing side, which we just did. Step three is to find the areas of both rectangles and add them together. So I've got a 160-foot space and a 144 square foot space, and it adds up to 304 square feet. If you're wondering what those numbers 160 and 144 came for, if you multiply the first room that I've shaded in here, and I'm shaded in here now, 8 times 18, that gives you 144. And then the other one's 160. Okay. All right. I want you to do the problems 1 through 4 on page 119 of your textbook before we jump into the next slide here. All right. Let's take a look at another problem. And you can freeze the screen and then proceed. Example 2, how many square feet of wallpaper will you be needed to cover the wall pictured? And that's usually Pictur at the right. Okay. So we've got this wall here that's 14 by 18 feet. Okay. And it's got a window in it that's 5 by 3 feet. Okay. So, and they want to know how much wallpaper is going to take to fill in all the spaces around that window on that wall. Okay. So step one would be to find just the total area of the whole wall, as assuming there was no window there. And that'd be 18 times 14. Length times width would give me 112 square feet. All right. Step two is to find the area of that window within the wall, which is 5 times 3, which is 15 square feet. All right. You're not going to wallpaper over the window. So if I take that window that's 15 square feet, subtract it from my 112 feet, which is step 3 here, that'll give me 97 square feet of wallpaper. And so that's how I would solve that two-step problem. Okay. So again, you're basically finding the total area of the shape. And then if it's a shape within a shape, then find out what that shape within the shape is, and then subtract it from the total. And there you go. All right. Going to jump now to some review for your final test. All right. So this is test 3, and I just want to remind you of a couple of things. One is that you should have 2 hours to take the test, which is plenty of time. Number 2, you will need to keep your grade above 73% or above. That's kind of what the college has established as like a C or above. And so we're aiming for in the 90s, 90% or better. Okay. And if you carefully review and follow all my steps, I hope you all land there. Okay. All right, so question number one, I've just given you two examples, and that's about all I'm going to put on the test of adding up yards and feet together, and then what's your total. So question number one here, I've got if I have 7 yards, 2 feet, 3 yards, 1 feet, and 8 yards and 2 feet, add them all together, and I'm going to get 5 feet total of all the feet added and 18 yards. Now, if you remember, there are 3 feet in a yard, and I've got 5 feet left over here. So I've got three goes into it one time. So if I add 18 plus that one, I get 19 yards. Okay. And three goes into it one time, and there's two left over. So it's 19 yards and 2 feet. Okay, would be my total answer. I'm going to change colors with my marker here to something else. Okay. This next problem is a subtraction problem. Okay. And so I've got 7 feet 6 inches minus 3 feet 9 inches. Okay. And it's subtraction. So I'm going to have to borrow here. You can see nine, you can't subtract from six. So that's why I changed colors. I'm going to cross out the seven, make it a 6 feet. Okay. But as you recall, I'm bringing over a foot, 1 foot. I'm bringing one over, but it's a foot, which is 12 inches. So if I take my 12 and my 6 and add them together, I now have 18 inches here. Okay. Now 9 inches from 18 inches, I'm just going to write IN here at the top. Okay. Gives me 9 inches left. Okay. And then three from six gives me 3 feet, 9 inches. And there I am, 3 feet, 9 inches left. Okay. All right. We've got a series of shapes here on the right. And one of the things you'll be asked to do on the test is just identify shapes. So, I mean, the first one on the left, can you identify what this one is? The red shape. It's a trapezoid. It's got two parallel sides, okay, and then it's got two sides that are not parallel. So it's a trapezoid. Triangle, I think you'll recognize a circle is in green. My parallelogram is my kind of a yellowish color. And my almost orange pink one is a rectangle, the bottom left here, and then a kind of a rounded square. Okay, so those are those shapes, and that's a review of the shapes that we have covered um, in this course so far. Now, another thing I'm going to ask you to do on the test is to do some matching of some area formulas. Okay, and you might be thinking, teacher, didn't you tell us in one of the sessions we don't have to memorize all the formulas? You don't. All you have to do is have your book open and with all the formulas there, or you could pre-write notes. You could you could copy this page right here. In your notes, you could freeze the screen, copy this as the area formulas. Because I don't expect you to memorize all of these and have them all in your head, but I do expect you to be able to work with them to find areas of shapes. Okay. So if you look at number one here, it's base times the height. Can you remember which one of those is this the formula for the area? Okay, the base times the height. Tell you what, let's do the process of elimination. I'm going to model some test taking skills for you here. Okay. 1/2 the base of one plus the base of two times the height. What does that sound like? Doesn't that sound like the area of the of like a trapezoid? Okay, so number two probably is going to be my E. If I see the letter E here, I'm going to fill that in here. Okay. Side squared, number three here. Side squared is other. That's side squared. That's a square. That's going to be A here. Okay. 1/2 the base times the height. I just remember that so many times. That's your area of your triangle. Where's your triangle? That's F at the bottom here. Okay. And pi r squared, that sounds like that circle thing, right? That's going to be B here. And length times width is a rectangle. That's a classic rectangle, and that's letter D here. All right, so we have A, B, we don't have a C. What's C? Area of a parallelogram. So base times the height. C is going to be my answer that's left. Okay, so I kind of modeled what do you do if you kind of forget one? Go on to all the rest of them. And if you can remember those, then go back and look at what's missing. And you've got your formulas for area. All right, let's move forward. And different kind of question. Now, probably what you might want to do is create a cheat sheet that looks like this, something like this, to help you on the test. Because what I've done here is for the sake of time, I'm not going to give you actual problems and show you how to find the perimeter of a parallelogram here and the perimeter of all these. But what I am going to do is I've created kind of like a cheat sheet that's got the formula for perimeter and circumference of all these shapes and the formula for area. They're all on the screen, and you can actually write them all in there, just like I have. Okay. Then, if you got on the test, which you will, I'll give you like the purple parallelogram here in the top left. I'll actually give you dimensions and ask for you for the P, the perimeter, and ask you for the area. So, as you've been doing in your homework, rewrite the formula for P for perimeter, then plug in the numbers because you'll actually have dimensions of this. And by the way, I want to remind you of this parallelogram here, this purple one. You're gonna have to figure out the base times the height, right? So you're gonna have to draw it'll actually have an imaginary line there for you, but just remember that that's going to be the H, the height of this thing. And then you'll have the same thing with triangles where you'll have dimensions. But if I look at the bottom down here at this triangle here that I'm kind of drawing on, that's the height that I just filled in. 1/2 the base times the height, or yeah, that's the formula, 1/2 the base times the height. So what you're going to do is to review for this test, you can go back and look at your homework for finding the circumference of a circle, like this red circle here, or finding the area, pi r squared. Remember that pi is, and I'm going to choose a wider color here to show up, 3.14. Remember that 3.14, and that's easy to punch in on your calculator. Okay. And so you'll plug in those numbers and find the perimeters or the areas of the various objects. Okay. Now, let's see here. Trying to find here. Yep, I've got a calculator here. Let's go to the next slide. So remember, what I want you to do is I want you to create a cheat sheet like this with all the formulas, and then also practice a little bit, finding areas and perimeters or circumferences of a few shapes. And that should do it. That should prepare you. Okay. Last slide in our test prep here. This is what I wanted my calculator. So I want to just model this for you again. You're going to get a couple of questions they're asking you for where you've got, shapes like this, and you got to figure out the total area. And we just did this in our last work. But look at the first figure on the top left here. I've got a room, a recreation room right there. What's the total area of carpet I'm going to put in for my recreation room? Okay. So I'm going to draw an imaginary line like this across here and create two rectangles, right? And so now the first rectangle, the one that's the top here, I'll draw an X through it. Okay, this rectangle here, this room here, do I have the dimensions to do length times width? Yeah, I've got 16 times 30. Okay, I can do that for the first rectangle. And then the next rectangle, I've got one that's this bottom rectangle, which I'll now put an X through. What am I going to do to figure out that space? Because I have a width of it, 11 feet across, but I don't have a length. Okay. Remember the step we just reviewed. I'm looking over here at the side of my big giant rec room, and it's 20 feet all the way from top to bottom. And then it's 16 feet from on the far left here. Okay. So if I subtract that 16 from 20, I take my 20 minus my 16, and that's going to give me 4 here. What that just told me is that this dimension right here, right from here to here is 4 feet. Okay. Now I can go 4 times 11 is 44 and add my 44 to my 16 times 30 dimension. Basically, I'm going to add those two boxes or two rectangles together, and that'll give me the total shape. Okay. All right, I'm going to move down to the last example. How many square feet are in the paneling will be needed to cover a wall drawn below? And again, this is kind of a similar problem, but it's a subtraction problem because I've got a door here. It's a 7-foot by 3-foot door. So what you're going to do is first, step one, find the total square footage, 15 times 8. Okay, 15 times 8. You're going to get that total square footage. Okay. So I'm going to punch it in my calculator um, real fast and get myself an answer 120. All right. So I've got 120 square feet total if there was no door here. Now I'm going to punch in my numbers for my door, which is 7 times 3, which equals 21. Okay. And if I subtract that, it'd be 100, it'd be 99. Okay. 99 square feet of they're asking for paneling. Okay. So that's how I would do that. I've got this door that's 7 times 3, 21 square feet. Subtract that from the total of the whole figure. Bingo, I've got my exact amount of paneling that I will need for that wall. Okay. All right. As always, if you have any questions, please send me a specific email saying exactly which question you have, and I'll be happy to respond and give you an answer. Um, Please do not take the test until you've studied, practiced. You feel pretty confident using all the formulas. You've got your cheat sheet like the previous slide here. So you can look at that sheet and go, okay, I've got all my formulas right here in front of me for finding perimeter or circumference and area. I'm ready to go. Okay. And good luck. I'm sure you'll do well. And then we'll be moving from there into our very last section of the class, preparing for our last test.